Hi, I'm Meredith Foster. I'm the host of the Unfolding podcast. And the Unfolding is a podcast where every week we sit down with someone and hear their God story. We believe God's writing a great big story that's been unfolding since the beginning of time. And He's invited every one of us to be a part of that. And so the way it shows up in the Unfolding is usually it's a story of how God has used the events, the experiences in somebody's life and use that to transform them and to transform their faith. Oftentimes it's facing something hard, something challenging, but when you come out on the other side of it, you realize that hard thing, that God used it for something good. And so the end result, even though these are sometimes really hard stories, is that it's hopeful and that it's, I like to say it's a faith-inducing experience to listen to the Unfolding, because every time you hear a real life God story and you hear how God has worked in someone else's life, it raises your faith to believe that He could do the same thing in your life. One great example is the story of Megan Thompson. Megan shared her story with me. She'd been battling stage 4 breast cancer, and she had a terminal diagnosis. We actually recorded her interview about 6 weeks before she passed away. And that would sound like, I think, to most of us, like worst case scenario, the hardest story you could imagine. And yet the reality of Megan's life was that God had shown up in her life in such a real and powerful way that she was overwhelmingly convinced by the goodness of God, even while she was facing one of the hardest things you could imagine. And when you hear that kind of faith, it just raises your own faith to believe that maybe God would show up for me in the midst of my hard stuff too. So that's what the Unfolding's all about. Powerful God stories. I hope you'll check it out.